Welcome to Veggy 360. My name is Linda and I'd like to take you on a tour of the Pearson Center garden in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's now late summer and we'll soon be starting the transition over to the fall garden, so I wanted to let you see what it looks like now. Everything that we grow here is for the cancer patients. The vegetables are grown using organic practices and we're able to harvest fresh vegetables at least 9 months out of the year. We have a series of 8 raised beds and 5 in-ground beds, and it's staffed by 14 volunteers, most of which are master gardeners. The cancer patients and their caregivers are welcome to come walk around and enjoy the beauty of the garden. This is the view from the center of the garden. As you can see, a vegetable garden doesn't have to be utilitarian. It can actually be a thing of beauty. When designing the layouts, I follow the philosophy of beauty with bounty. I include a variety of flowers to add beauty as well as attract beneficial insects and pollinators. And the vegetable layout is designed to mix colors, patterns, and textures to further add beauty. To add bounty, we plant vegetables using intensive spacing and use trellises for vining crops so that they're growing up, not out. We also strive to grow the most nutritious vegetables that we can and look for vegetables that are vegetable varieties that are loaded with cancer-fighting compounds. Now let me show you what's growing in the garden. Back at the entrance to your right is the tomato and pepper bed. We have several different types of tomatoes and 2 types of peppers, a long purple pepper and banana peppers. Unfortunately, the tomatoes were hit earlier in the season with early blight, and we actually lost several of the plants, and the remaining ones just don't look so good right now. On the other hand, the zinnias look great. To the left is our bell pepper and eggplant bed. We have several different varieties of bell peppers and eggplants growing. You can see all the blooms on the eggplants, and of course the peppers are loaded. At the end of the walkway is a cattle panel trellis so that we can use the vertical space to grow pole beans and indeterminate tomatoes. This is Kentucky Wonder pole bean that is just starting to come into production. To the left is a volunteer asparagus or yard-long beans. Look at the size of these beans. They're absolutely amazing and so productive. We were supposed to have delicata squash growing in this space, but the seeds failed to germinate, unfortunately. But the purple potted pole beans are doing absolutely wonderfully. I was hoping to be able to show you some of the purple pods because they're beautiful, but I guess we got them all yesterday. Growing next to these beans are the indeterminate tomatoes. We have 5 on each side of the bed. They were hit by blight earlier in the season and it really knocked them down, but you can see they've bounced back and are absolutely loaded with fruit. They're doing so well right now. Next we have jalapeno peppers, and they're loaded with jalapenos and they're very popular here at the Cancer Center. And next to that are the marigolds. This is our pollinator garden. We have several varieties of beautiful native flowers growing. They've been great for attracting pollinators to our garden so we can increase yields. These are our dwarf tomatoes. We have 9 of them planted in this triangular bed with a alyssum planted at each corner to attract the beneficial insects. We had carrots interplanted in the center of the bed, but we recently harvested the last of them. Unfortunately, the tomatoes in this bed have been hit by tomato diseases as well, but it seems like some varieties are more resistant than others. And look at the number of fruits on these plants. Oh my goodness, full-size fruits on plants that only grow 3 to 4 feet tall. With these tremendous yields and short stature, they're perfect for growing in these taller raised beds. And dwarf tomatoes produce fruit the entire season, unlike the determinate tomatoes. And compared to indeterminates, there's actually less maintenance required. We have 8 different varieties growing in this bed, 4 of which are extra high in cancer-fighting compounds. Yellow squash is growing in this bed. These plants have been so productive in spite of being hit early in the season by squash vine borers. We treated the borers and the plants have recovered quite nicely, as you can see. The plants are loaded with blooms and lots of baby squash. And here's one that's hiding. This one should have been harvested yesterday. The plants look great right now. We planted zinnias at the end of the bed in order to attract pollinators that you can see flying around. This is our green bean and cucumber bed. At the end of this bed, we have planted some alyssum to attract the beneficial insects. At each end of the bed, we also planted 3 different varieties of green beans with different colors, from yellow to purple, as well as regular green beans. The plants have hit peak harvest, as you can see, all these blooms and just loaded with beans. We have trellised the cucumbers using tomato cages in order to allow us to grow more cucumbers in the space that we have available. And just look at all the blooms on these cucumber plants, in spite of the fact that the leaves have turned yellow and are probably getting close to the end. Next to the green beans and cucumbers, we have planted 2 different varieties of butternut squash, along with a rogue weed that needs to be pulled. We also planted nasturtium in order to attract some beneficial insects. The squash in this bed has been so productive. We've had a bumper crop of these 2 varieties, but we're starting to get some powder mildew developing, and so these plants will soon be replaced with some fall crops. Across from the butternut squash is a bed of zucchini. Ahead, though, is my favorite view in the whole garden. It's a cattle panel trellis growing over a walkway that backs up to a retaining wall. We planted some yellow marigolds at the base of the trellis and different varieties of marigolds along the edges. Going up the trellis, we have a mixture of asparagus beans and cucumbers, again using the vertical space in order to grow more. Look at the asparagus beans. Oh my goodness, they are just so prolific and so long. On each side of the trellis, we have planted beds of burgundy okra and Clemson spineless okra, both of which are very popular with the cancer patients. I'd like to point out something that I find very interesting in this part of the garden. Look at the difference in the size of the okra plants on each side of this cattle panel trellis. This part of the garden doesn't get as much sun as it used to because these trees have just grown so large on the back side of the garden, and it just casts too much shade back here. We get lots of good morning sun on the east side, the left side of your screen, but on the right side, the west side, it's more filtered sun. Tall, strong plants with high yields on the east, smaller, more scraggly plants with less yield on the west side. The importance of adequate sun on plant production. Here's an example of a typical summer harvest. We plant a spring, summer, and fall garden so that we're able to harvest 9 months out of the year. Each day we bring the fresh veggies into the Cancer Center for the patients to take home and enjoy. I would love to know if there are any other cancer centers out there with vegetable gardens. Comment below if you know of any in your area or would like to know more about starting one yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future videos. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.